My first introduction was probably sometime in the 90s. We had coffee on the patio, and it was lovely, beautiful sunny Sunday morning. My husband and I retired here in 2013, and we very soon became involved in the campaign to save, because I was very saddened by the state it was in. I thought, no, something's got to be done, I'll have to get on board.
I said to the careers officer, I want to be an actor or a stuntman. And instead of laughing at me, he got on the phone and said, do you know there's a professional theatre in Folkestone called the Leas Pavilion? So I went along for my interview on the yacht scheme, and I got the job. So for 25 quid a week, like some people here, did front of house. I did what they call general dog's body, really, when I first started, which is everything. So you get experience in every aspect of theatre, really.
In the early 1950s, my grandmother used to take me sometimes, and she attended every week if she could. And we always sat in the same place on the balcony, just by those big steps that went right down into the auditorium, so we could see the ladies having their cups of tea.
They were the best seats, really, weren't they?
They were.
Yes.
You got a good view there. You could see what everybody was doing, and it was just magical as a small child.
I was there in 45. I go back as far as tea matinees. During the matinee, you had these two waitresses who served the tea. Yes. So, you've got the rattle of teacups.
Can you tell us about Brough?
He was nice, I liked him. He was a bit fierce, but it was all front, it didn't really mean anything.
And I do remember Arthur Brough, because my mother was working, so I must have popped in those late 60s and seen him in his office. But I think it was 1973 that I got a summer job in the school holidays, helping the scenic artist paint the scenery, because obviously with the weekly rep plays, that the scenes had to change every week, so there was always a new set of scenery being painted. They called it striking the set. They'd take the whole lot down and then they'd put the whole lot up. I used to stay probably till about midnight, and I was back at 9 o'clock in the following morning. They'd been working pretty much throughout the night.
I used to have to stay there sometimes all night, because sometimes the set wouldn't be finished. So we'd have to spend the rest of the weekend getting it painted, getting it nailed up, and getting the brackets on and the battens and everything like that for the actors to turn up on the Monday for the tech and stuff like that. And sometimes we were still finishing the set off just before the tech would happen, and during.
Well, I go back to the late 60s, and I grew up playing on the steps. It was just a magical place for me. I loved it there. And it took me a long time to actually get my foot in the door. And it wasn't until Sooty that I managed to get in there. And the atmosphere was amazing. It made me feel toasty inside. It was really the outside of the building that inspired me. It was such a beautiful building, or it still is and could be a beautiful building.
The uniqueness of the facade of it, the actual whole ambience and the construction of the building is great. And you remember sitting out on a summer's morning after rehearsal, out in the front there, and the punters coming in, and they'd get to know you. Yeah. And you walk on stage, and one lady would turn and say, "Oh, I like him," or "Can't stand him," or he did it, he's the murderer. This was all part of it. I was a jobbing actor. I was out of work, so I'd never met Charles Vance, but everybody knew of Charles Vance. He invited me to meet him. And Charles was resplendent in his office. It was early winter, but there he was with the open neck shirt and the medallion and the silver top cane, which he claimed was Henry Irving's, but he got it in a junk shop for £0.50, I do know that. But that was Charles. You mentioned any actor or actress. You think, now, who's the most unlikely? Richard Burton, Charles. Richard, knew him well, gave him his first break. You came to accept it. But I'd never met him, and he said, sit down. He'd obviously done a little bit of homework. We're opening with The Merchant of Venice, and you're playing Shylock. What? You've never seen me act, Charles. This is an extraordinary risk. No, but we did. And then that started 5 very happy years of working with Mr. Vance. Yeah. He was an authoritative figure, Charles. Yeah. Quite a big figure in the world of theatre. For all his bluster, and all his bravura and all the rest. He was a very genuine, kind man, and that was a breath of fresh air in what is not always the nicest business. One night we had 7 people booked in, and there was Don, front of house manager, meeting the people as they came in. Good evening. I just thought you'd like to know there's only 7 in of you tonight, love. Only 7. So what you can do, you can have your money back, or you can come another night, which I don't mind. None of them wanted their money back. And at the end, you'd think the house was packed. They applauded as if there were 250 there. Wonderful. And another lovely memory is of June Brown, who I had the honour to suffocate on the stage. Deathly hush. And one old lady turns to the other in the loudest voice possible, said, "I think she's dead." And June, from underneath the cushion, is going, trying desperately not to laugh.
Because we heard about the production that had 7 people one night, but there must have been times when the place was packed. I don't even know how many people it would hold when it was full, and do people remember it sort of...
How many it would hold? About 350, I would have thought.
Yeah, so 7 people would rattle around. Was it sort of its future always a little bit sort of hand to mouth, and it was obviously heavily reliant on volunteers?
You would send people out round the shops, round the hotels, to go and get props, things you needed. You needed a specific piece of furniture, but you would go and borrow all sorts of things. It could be furniture, it could be flowers, it could be jewellery. Anything you needed, it wasn't there. You had to go out and borrow it.
The sad thing about all this is that when that theatre closed, that was the end of repertory in the whole of this county. And a rep, if you don't know, is where actors cut their teeth. They're 40 weeks, they work off their equity. It's the lifeblood of aspiring actors, actresses, ASMs, and we don't have one. And that's a tragedy.
How about the end? Did it go out with a bang? Did it just sort of peter out?
There weren't balloons everywhere. No, it was a very sad day.
The last season of plays was cut short, I think, by about 2 or 3 plays, and they ended up I think they put The Unexpected Guest on right at the end.
We went away from Folkestone in 1989 and we didn't come back until 12 years ago. What I saw was the Pavilion. It was getting more and more run down, so I thought I'd like to get involved.
The people who've been involved, the friends and campaigning, I really take my hat off to them because they've done their homework and they've got a lot of support from a lot of very influential people. People like Ian McKellen, Judy Dench, other people.
But the reason it was built is for a great meeting place for the people of Folkestone, and really, it could be again. It really could.
This work is ongoing, and more power to their elbow. I hope there's an end product for them because they deserve it as much as the people of Folkestone.